Joining me now with the latest from Capitol Hill is NBC News senior political reporter Sahil Kapur. Sahil, good to see you. I know you are following every move on this, and there's a limited sort of rush. 4 weeks sounds like a lot of time. It's not. Do we have a sense yet of any readout from the president's conversation with Speaker Johnson?
Yeah, Kelly, we don't know too much. The White House has not put out a readout, but Speaker Johnson did come back to the Hill after the meeting, briefly spoke to reporters, didn't say a whole lot. He said it will be a critical few weeks coming up in the run-up to Memorial Day because his goal is to pass that massive multi-trillion-dollar piece of legislation through the House of Representatives by Memorial Day. That requires the committees in the coming days rolling out their individual pieces of the bill, passing it and sending it over to the Budget Committee, which will essentially staple it all together, send it to the floor. As you know, Kelly, Republicans have a very small House majority and a lot of work to do. Now, we also know there was a political component to this meeting in the White House with President Trump. We know that because not only did Speaker Johnson attend, but the NRCC chairman, Rich Hudson, who runs the House Republican campaign effort, was also there. And we know that right around the time they were meeting, President Trump put out endorsements of several key Republicans who are in competitive districts will be targeted by Democrats next fall, including Gabe Evans in Colorado, Juan Ciscomani in Arizona, Derek Van Orden in Wisconsin, and Scott Perry in Pennsylvania, who was sort of a surprise, almost defeated Republican last fall.
And a lot of times those campaign meetings are held off-site and not at the White House because of the sort of the line to keep official business and campaign business separate. When you consider some of the issues Republicans are dealing with right now, there's intra-party fighting among Republicans about how to make all of these cuts work, what their priorities are, and just how to get it across the finish line. What are you sensing now about that sort of family conversation among Republicans about where things stand?
It's gotten quite contentious already, Kelly. There is an enormous amount to do for Republicans still between now and the finish line. They have to iron out some of the toughest, thorniest issues. And take a look at 5 of them. We have a new piece today outlining some of the biggest things that they have to address. One is how to cut Medicaid spending. There's simply no way to make the math work for the Republican budget without significant spending cuts to Medicaid. The hardliners on the conservative side want to go big on this, whereas a number of Republicans in swing districts are very nervous about that. There's the scope of the tax cuts. Just extending the TCJA from 2017, that's the Trump tax cuts from his first term, is going to cost trillions of dollars. Are they going to add Trump's other campaign promises for his second term? No tax on tips and overtime. There's, of course, the SALT deduction. That's state and local taxes, a huge issue in high tax jurisdictions where some Republicans in places like New York and New Jersey are insisting on lifting what is currently a $10,000 cap. Many Republicans don't want to do it. And then there are also rollbacks to clean energy funding that they're wrestling with because a lot of the money goes to red districts. Finally, new Pentagon spending. Does the Pentagon need another $100 billion? Some Republicans say yes.
Well, with that list, Sahil, I know you will be busy trying to track down how it's going day by day. That is a comprehensive and complicated list. Thank you so much. We appreciate that you're on the beat.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.